Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 14, Texts 30 and 31 for today's class. Pradyumna sarva vrishninam sukham maste maharatha gambhirarayo niruddho vardate bhagavanuta. Sushenascharudešnascha sambhojambhavati sutaha anyacha karshani pravara saputra rishabhadaya. Sushenascharudešnascha sambhojambhavati sutaha anyacha karshani pravara saputra rishabhadaya. I'm going to read the transliterations for text 30 first and then 31. Pradyumna, a son of Lord Krishna, Sarva, all, Vrishninam, of the members of the Vrishni family, Sukham, happiness, Aste, are in, Maharatha, the great general, Gambhira, deeply, Raya, dexterity, Aniruddha, a grandson of Lord Krishna, Vardhate, flourishing, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Uta, must, and the transliteration for text 31, Susheneha, Sushena, Charudeshna, Cha, and Samba, Jambavati Suta, the son of Jambavati, Anye, others, Cha, also, Karshni, the sons of Lord Krishna, Pravaraha, all chieftains, Saputraha, along with their sons, Rishabha, Adaya, etc. Now I'm reading the translation. How is Pradyumna, the great general of the Vrishni family? Is he happy? And is Aniruddha, the plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead, faring well? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Pradyumna and Aniruddha are also expansions of the personality of Godhead, and thus they are also Vishnu Tattva. At Dwaraka, Lord Vasudeva is engaged in his transcendental pastimes along with his plenary expansions, namely Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and therefore each and every one of them can be addressed as the personality of Godhead, as it is mentioned in connection with the name Aniruddha. Purport for text 31 by Srila Prabhupada. As already mentioned, Lord Krishna married 16,108 wives, and each of them had 10 sons. Therefore, 16,108 times 10 is 161,080 sons. They all grew up, and each of them had as many sons as their father. And the whole aggregate was something near 1,610,800 family members of the Lord. The Lord is the father of all living beings who are countless in number, and therefore only a few of them are called to associate with the Lord in his transcendental pastimes as the Lord of Dwaraka on this earth. It is not astonishing that the Lord maintained a visible family consisting of so many members. It is better to refrain from comparing the Lord's position to ours. And it becomes a simple truth as soon as we understand at least a partial calculation of the Lord's transcendental position. King Yudhishtra, while inquiring about the Lord's sons and grandsons of Dwaraka, mentioned only the chieftains amongst them, for it was impossible for him to remember all the names of the Lord's family members. Om Ajnanatimurandasya Glanis. I'm going into some of the verse. I'm sorry. Om Ajnanatimurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's class. Today is going to be another beautiful day, a beautiful weekend. So thank you for joining us and being with us. Please pray for me and bless me as I cover these verses. And thank you, Lingaraj Prabhu, for giving me this opportunity to speak a few words on the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is difficult because there is very little said in the purport, if anything at all. So I'm going to try my best and we can have discussion. So needless to say, it will most likely be a very short class, but then we can open it up for discussion and I can learn a few things from you all. And if there's something that I can contribute, I will do so as well. I will do my best. So having said that, the little backdrop here in terms of where we are. We've been reading and we see and we hear that Maharaj Yudhishtra is continuing to inquire from various people, and in this case, at this time, from his younger brother, Bhima, in terms of what is happening. What are all of these omens? These omens are so dark. They're very extraordinary. They're not like ordinary omens, that you would normally see. It's not just like a black cat walking across the road. But here we're talking about dark clouds. We're talking about, owls, screeching, we throughout the day. I mean, these are nocturnal animals, and that includes jackals and hyenas, howling at the sun, not even at the moon, but at the sun. And there are, all of these very abnormal, weird omens that we don't see on a day-to-day basis, or even on a monthly basis, or even on a yearly basis. I mean, these are completely out of the blue. So seeing these omens, Maharaj Yudhishthira is very, very concerned. And again, he is not in a state of anxiety for himself, right? It's more about, he is foreseeing something bad happening in general, that would impact not just him, but more so the general population. And knowing Maharaj Yudhishthira and his character and his virtues, he's always thinking about the others. He's never thinking about himself, but he's thinking about others and the welfare of the others. And that's one of his greatest qualities, and that we will see that as well, as we read these verses and we continue to make progress through the rest of this chapter and the next chapter as well, where he's constantly inquiring with that genuine feeling of compassion, and in terms of the welfare of others. So he was also thinking, Arjuna has been gone for several months, and where is he? I haven't heard from him. I hope everything is fine. And, Narada Muni had foretold that everything was going to be coming to an end and Krishna was ending his pastimes. So that was playing in his mind as well. So he was like, is my brother already gone? Has this already started unfolding? Is it time for us to say goodbye to, his very dear friend and cousin, Lord Krishna? So it seemed like the whole world was coming to an end. The whole sky was falling, and everything was coming to a dramatic end. And Maharaj Yudhishthira was starting to feel that, and he was starting to feel and experience this this dramatic end of something that was preceded by something so wonderful, so glorious, with the Lord being there, during his lifetime in this material world. So it was a very difficult kind of an experience. And you can just about imagine, I mean, if we had the opportunity, the rarest of the rarest opportunities of being in that experience, just try and visualize and imagine what it would be like, to actually be in a state where we're letting go of someone as dear as the Lord Himself, right? He's not just an ordinary personality; He is the supreme personality of Godhead, right? He is the original. There is no one greater than He, right? Even the scriptures tell us that. So he was thinking through all of these various things, and he was experiencing all of this. Every atom in his body was resonating, with a sense of apprehension, a sense of doom, a sense of separation from the Lord. So he was experiencing all of these various feelings that were coming to him in waves. And these are not just small waves. These are like waves, like a tsunami that were hitting him, from all sides and all the time. So he was not able to sleep, eat. He was constantly inquiring from different people. And each time he inquired, he knew that the answer that he was going to get was going to be the same. But he was hoping that at least someone would say, no, 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 don't worry about it. All of this is going to go away. It's just a bad dream. It's just a bad dream. He was hoping that he would hear something different, even though he was getting the same answer from everyone he spoke to around him. So here he is talking to Bhima, and he's also wondering, he's asking him, Arjuna has been gone for several months, and why is it that I'm not able to hear anything from him, right? Where is he? Is he okay? Is everything fine? Are everybody okay? And so on. All right. And while he's doing so, Arjuna, the notice comes. The servants and the palace come and tell Maharaj Yudhishthira, Arjuna is here. He's back from his travels. He's back from Dwaraka. And so immediately, Maharaj Yudhishthira says, please send Arjuna here so that I can find out how he's doing and how everybody is doing. Please send him in. Please send him in. And so the next set of verses, Maharaj Yudhishthira is inquiring from Arjuna as well to find out how everybody is, his family members, his kith and kin, his friends, and if everything is okay with Arjuna and so on. So over the next few verses, we'll be hearing about those inquiries as well as Arjuna's response. In the following chapter, Arjuna is going to be talking about his experience and what happened and the state of affairs in terms of this entire experience that everybody is. It's not just Maharaj Yudhishthira who's seeing these omens. There's people elsewhere living in the world, and after all, Maharaj Yudhishthira is the emperor of the world. So all the citizens of the world are also experiencing these omens. It's not like Maharaj Yudhishthira is dreaming this up and seeing this in isolation. It is something that is spreading. It's like a dark, dark gloom that is spreading throughout the universe, and everybody's experiencing it, but they're not able to explain. Something is wrong. They're not able to put their finger on it and say, this is the reason why, or this is what is happening. They're also becoming a part of this experience. People are fighting between themselves. People are arguing between themselves. People are cheating others. People are taking to the vices. So there are multiple things that are happening. They're not able to quite relate as to what's happening. You can just about imagine the chaos, because keep in mind, preceding this were extremely glorious times, golden times, right? Everything was flourishing under Maharaj Yudhishthira within the presence of the Lord himself, right? Krishna was there, and it was so beautiful because no one even thought, when the going is good, you're not thinking, this is going to come to an end. Talk to the people who are invested in the stock market. When the going is good and there is a bullish market, you speak to them and tell them, hey, you know what? Everything is going to head down tomorrow or the next moment. They're going to laugh at you and say, no, the fundamentals are great. They'll give you 10 million reasons why everything is going to be good. Everything is going to be rosy, right? So when the going is good, people generally tend to forget that we are living in this material world. Reversals are bound to happen. And we are not separate from this material world. Unfortunately, we are a part of this material world. So whatever happens here does impact us in many ways. And for some people, it is greater and for than the others. So depending on the various things that we've been discussing over the last several weeks in terms of karmic reactions, in terms of kala, in terms of how time can influence various things that happen to each and every one of us, and the experiences, collectively speaking. Now, individually, the experiences can vary in terms of the intensity, but in terms of the collective experience, we're either heading into a bear market or we're heading into a bull market, as they call it on the street, which is, bullish market is really, looking up. Everything is nice and hunky-dory, whereas, a bearish market is more like heading into a lot of losses, quarrels, a lot of reversals heading south. So that's pretty much where we are in terms of the backdrop. And so, with this, we can get into, the verse itself. And again, Krishna is talking about Pradyumna. He's inquiring about Pradyumna. He's inquiring about Aniruddha. Now, these are also, these are Vishnu Tattva, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. He says, Pradyumna and Aniruddha are also expansions of the personality of Godhead, and thus they're Vishnu Tattva. So we'll speak a little more about that. But first, I'd like to also talk about, what's happening. We know what Prabhupada is mentioning in the next verse, which where he's saying, as already mentioned, Lord Krishna married 16,108 wives, and each of them had 10 sons. Therefore, 16,108 times 10, simple math, is 161,080 sons. 161,080 sons. Wow. The population of Naperville, I was just checking to see, where we are in terms of the population of Naperville. And as of the last census, Naperville was at 147,501 people living in Naperville. Okay. Even that number, I'm talking about all of Naperville, not talking about Chicagoland or anything, just Naperville alone. But even just Naperville, which is considered both a suburb of Chicago as well as a city of Chicago, it's considered a city, right? It's the city of Naperville. Even that is 147,501. Okay, so that's even that big number is nothing compared to, or I should say, less than the number of sons that Krishna had through his 16,108 wives. So that makes it 161,108 sons. Wow, having that many children, it's just something that we can't even conceive. I mean, inconceivable, it's unimaginable, in terms of how a parent could take care of so many. But he's the Lord himself, right? And therefore, Srila Prabhupada also cautions us and says, don't try to compare yourself with the Lord, right? And even in this material world, the things that Krishna displays and demonstrates, never try to put ourselves in that position to say, we could also do that. There's a sect of people in India that, try to associate, and they ask all these questions about how, Krishna had so many wives, why can't we? Similarly, the question may come up, we can have so many sons. Well, if Krishna had so many sons, we can also try and have as many children as we want, well, we've grown up through times, our parents and parents, they've had large families. but nothing to this extent, right? So we've heard of people of six, people of seven, eight, nine, 10, 11. In fact, my mother was the 13th child. My father was one of also many children, six in his family. So it was not uncommon even during our recent times, right? But now, more lately over the last, I would say around 40 to 50 years, things have started to change where, people are settling with just one, two, at the most three children, right? That's also, out of necessity, out of, the circumstances and the life that we lead. It becomes difficult for us to be able to manage and bring up children in the right way. Talking about bringing up children, we realize that it is becoming increasingly challenging, and I'm sure, as parents, you're experiencing this as well in terms of how challenging it is to bring up children these days, right? Especially children who are, in their before they're teenagers, and even after they become teenagers, for more so, they're extremely challenging in the sense they're digitally far more native, for instance. They're far more savvy. They're intellectually more aware. They're socially more forward, and emotionally they're more outright. It will say it straight to your face. The way they think. And all leading to a culture that is continually morphing toward an utterly confusing state of material circumstances for us as parents. So even say something trivial to the children can be construed or misconstrued in a way that gets them all upset, and they will say it outright to you, right? And this is becoming more and more common. I mean, you try simple thing like why are your grades so bad, or what are your grades like, or how did you do on your exam, for instance, can get a response. Will get a response from the children in a way that you wouldn't even expect otherwise. You wouldn't even, and for that matter, you wouldn't even dream of saying something like that to your own father or to your mother, right? The next thing you know is there's going to be a belt in the hand, or your parents are going to be chasing you with a stick around the house, right? So, but that's changing, and there are crazy things happening. In fact, there are some extreme examples also that I can give, and hopefully this is not happening in your place. But I've personally seen some of these things, through through very close friends of mine, and how they're having challenges with their children as well. All right. So, in fact, one of my very close classmates actually had to answer the door. And when he opened the door, the cops were standing right there. And he was like surprised. He was like, what are the cops doing here? What did I do wrong? And the cops were like, sir, there was a report. We had a call from, so-and-so. And she said that, there's a domestic problem here. So he said, what domestic problem are you talking about? And turns out that he was actually, shouting at his daughter for doing something she shouldn't have done. And the daughter actually ended up calling the cops and saying, I'm going through some domestic abuse here. So can you please come and help? I mean, this was shocking. I mean, I'm talking about a very, very close friend. We were, engineering classmates and college mates. So, and then, we've grown up together, and, we've never heard and seen of things like this, especially in certain cultures, like the Indian culture, where we are so much more respectful and so, socially aware in terms of how we should regard elders. But that is happening here as well. The culture is changing so rapidly. It doesn't matter, what our roots are. Things are changing so rapidly and morphing, like I said, into totally, utterly confusing circumstances for parents, right? And the cycle is only going to repeat itself, and it's only going to get worse. It's, in fact, more than a cycle, I would say it's a spiral that is only going to be heading downward, not upward. So there was another instance where the parents were extremely restrictive, and again very close friends of ours here in Naperville. And we get a call one day. Ruchira and I were, one afternoon, and Ruchira and I were shocked to hear that the child was missing. So we were, before we registered, a police case, because the parents were really distraught. They didn't know what to do. The first thing they did was they picked up the phone, gave us a call and said, can you please help? And their child and Nityapriya were classmates throughout school. And so we're talking about high school by that time. And here she was, this child of our friend who was missing. And we were asked to look into it, and so we started. So Nityapriya and Ruchira and I got into the car, and we were driving literally through familiar places, the school, the backyards, and stuff like that. We were through familiar places where she could potentially be, and we were literally looking out to see. And we were making calls to all of her classmates, trying to figure out where she was. And long story short, we ended up finding her by Krishna's grace. She was completely, unnerved, and she was at a point of a nervous breakdown. She had actually run away from home, and she was planning to leave the state and move and actually go to some other place. Okay. So this was crazy. I mean, I don't want to get into all of the details, but I'm saying, there are things like these that happen which can cause a lot of disturbance, not only in the lives of the children, but also in the minds and the lives of the parents. And, the way we have a responsibility to take care and nurture our children is so very important. And it's a very heavy responsibility. So we can do an entire week's worth of class on just about how do we bring up children, especially in this day and age. So talking about, you know, one or two children, is in itself a challenge. What to speak of 161,108 children, right? I mean, it's a big responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. Fortunately for us, staying in Krishna consciousness, it's been really wonderful. We all need to be very grateful in terms of what we've been given and what our children have been given, through the community, through the congregation, through the sadhu sangha that we have, through the teachings that we are, constantly being given, the guidance, the expert guidance that we get from our spiritual master, from the teachings and the writings of Srila Prabhupada. We see how our children have been, completely growing in a nice, sheltered environment, given the strong spiritual foundation. And with the spiritual foundation, now they're developing wings and moving out into the world. And I'm talking about, people in my stage of life where, both my children have grown up in Krishna consciousness, have grown up, past high school, college. They're now married, working, and proud parents as well, right? So they're at that stage now, and we don't have to worry as much anymore because they know what they're doing, and they're still so in touch with their childhood friends because they've built these relationships, and these relationships are far more stronger than the relationships they would have with their classmates in school or at college or at work, for instance. Why? Because this is based on a spiritual foundation. The spiritual foundation is so strong, and we're so fortunate to have this. We should be really, really grateful, to what Srila Prabhupada has given us, what our spiritual master has given us, what our congregation has given us, what our community has given us here, right? And the same thing is being replicated in multiple places. Of course, it's still a drop in the ocean when it comes to the culture worldwide. What to speak of, even America, or even for that matter, the Midwest, or even for that matter, in and around Naperville, right? So this is something that we need to be cognizant about, and we need to continue to to nurture this. But it also starts with a heavy responsibility on us as parents, as elders, as people who can guide. We are also, in a sense, shikshakuras, because we are constantly, under the focus or the spotlight to be able to set the right example for our children. And it's not a one-time kind of a thing. This is a lifetime of how, because as they're growing up, they may or may not reciprocate, they may or may not respond the way we want to, for instance. But all of this is being absorbed. They absorb these practices, the spiritual practices that we do, the way we conduct our lives, the way we build relationships, the way we communicate, the way we present ourselves, the way we think and our approach to life, the way we respond to various circumstances in life. All of this is being recorded, and it doesn't have to be verbal, right? So these are things that they, as they're growing up, are constantly absorbing, minute by minute, moment by moment. It's happening. So if we give them the right foundation, and that is strengthened again with like-minded children, relationships that they have with other children in the community, in the congregation. Just think about it, and that we're seeing this, and I can vouch for this. It's absolutely true, because we've seen our children grow up with children in the congregation and under the expert guidance of elders who so carefully nurtured, so lovingly nurtured them. They've grown up to be very, very strong in their spiritual practices, very strong in their foundations, and very strong in terms of their understanding, the holistic understanding of what life is all about. So reversals will still come and go, but it is not that they're going to react or respond like any other person in the material world. Through the guidance that they have, the virtues that they've imbibed, it is a lot more easier for them. And we feel confident as parents now, whether we don't have to be there hand holding them every minute and every moment. We don't have to be in that state of anxiety as well, because Krishna is taking care of them, and Krishna is giving them all the various tools that they need to deal with life in a practical manner, right? So all of this spiritual guidance is not just sentiment, it's not just academic, but it is actual tools that children can use. And as they grow into young adults and then mature adults, they have their own families. They're able to deal with this and in turn give their children. So you see that's again a spiral, but this time the spiral is an upward spiral. It's a regenerative spiral, right? I see my little granddaughter. She comes home, on days that we take care of her here at our place. And she goes into the puja room, and the first thing she does is she offers her obeisances. Never mind which way she's facing. Ruchira laughs. She says, sometimes she's not even facing the deities. She's offering obeisances. She's not even 2 years old. She's just 1.5. But just building on that, and the way she does Haribol is so cute. So these things start to happen at a very young age, and they're watching their elders, like I said, and their parents and so on. So it is very important for us, and the responsibility is very heavy on us in terms of how we maintain this, and in terms of setting the right example. So I think that can be, like I said, I'm doing very little justice here, because this is a topic that we can take for many days, weeks, and so on, because this is something that we all have to work together. And then you will actually see the results. Believe me, you will see the results, as I see in our children. I see when the children all get together. I see they're not talking about mundane things like we would otherwise. I see them, when they come over, the first thing they do is, they're sitting down and they're doing kirtan, for instance, or they're reading from the scriptures, and they do that on a regular basis. We don't even have to tell them. In fact, they have their own, readings on a regular basis. And the discussions sometimes, I mean, we're not supposed to eavesdrop on anyone for that matter. It's a bad principle. But this kind, when you pass by and you hear the kinds of deep discussions that they have on topics, is amazing. It's like, really, I mean, these children are not ordinary children. They are definitely bringing it with them from other lives, and they're coming here to even teach us many things that we've never known, right? So this is the beauty of being in Krishna consciousness. We now start to discriminate, and now we can actually see the differences between the lives that we led and the lives that we're leading now. There's a black and white difference. It's not a shade of gray anymore. It's a black and white difference, a stark black and white contrast, right? Think about your life 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years ago, and you see yourself now. You see the transformation, the change that has come about in your life. Your entire outlook towards life has changed, right? Thanks to Srila Prabhupada, right? We have to be extremely, extremely grateful for what we've received from Srila Prabhupada every single moment, really. So bringing up children is very, very important. Now, how we, communicate. Now, we also see, in the context of what we're reading, Maharaj Yudhishtra is inquiring about the welfare of others, right? That's by nature, he is extremely compassionate. So talking about how social norms are changing, it's changing so dramatically that, we don't even know our neighbors anymore, right? Here, Maharaj Yudhishthira is talking about, his family, his extended family, his kith and kin, his friends, and so on. That's because he's feeling so much responsibility for them. But these days, it's just fashionable to say, "How are you doing?" Right? A common example would be, in passing, you see somebody and you hear them saying, "How are you doing?" Do they really mean that? Or are they just simply saying, "How are you doing?" Right? So even before you give them an answer, "I'm doing fine," they're on their way. They're already gone. So the question is, is that really a true question? Is that a genuine question? Or is that something that, it's just a matter of saying, like saying hi, right? "How are you doing?" And the other interesting examples that I can think of is, it's, we speak to our friends. Back when we were in India, as we were growing up, we would just drop by at any given point in time, and it was never a problem, never an issue. But here and now, it is more like, I have to call, I have to make sure that the other person is available. And usually, everybody is so busy and caught up with all the activities that they have, say, "Oh, you know what, I have to take my child for piano lessons. And then I have a meeting here. I have to then have my dinner. And then, it's the day's gone. The weekends come and go. I have yard work to do. I have this to catch up on. I have laundry to take care of." And so people's time has become very, very, very short to share with others. It's more about what they need to get done for themselves. And even that they're having a hard time, keeping up with. So time management is coming in the way of relationships, right? So having a genuine relationship and building on that relationship has become quite an issue, right? I've gone to see my friend the other day, and he was totally unprepared to see me. Not because I didn't give him notice, but the notice wasn't long enough. And not just that, when I saw him, he was actually, running around with a gun on his hip. He had a holster, and he had a gun on his hip. And believe me, this person is a very, very beautiful, a very wonderful person at heart. Okay. But I was quite shocked to see, this transformation. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I was quite shocked to see him running around with a gun on his hip. I mean, you don't see people running around with a holster with a gun in it, even normally in the house or around the house, right? Maybe in some hunting expedition or something like that. But no, this was not like that. So I jokingly I said, yeah, that must be a toy gun, right? He's like, no. In fact, here you can try it. You can try it. I was like, I jumped 6 feet away. I said, this is not me. This is not me. Although through the NCC, the National Cadet Corps and the President Scouts and all of the training that we've had back in India, some of us have gone through that. But we've had to, as a part of that training, we had to learn how to handle, weapons and arms. Nothing like this. These are like, automatic guns. They are like assault rifles and weapons, which can shoot even up to 300 people per minute. They can shoot 300 to 500 rounds per minute. I mean, they're so fast. They can shoot so many bullets. So technically speaking, you could end up, taking out and eliminating 300 to 500 people per minute. So and then you're asking yourself, okay, these guys are asking for protection in terms of, it's their birthright. They're asking to be protected. So it's one of the things that has been written into the Constitution that says, I need to have the right to be able to protect myself. So I need to be able to, the right to own a gun. Right to own a gun is one thing, but right to own an assault rifle, okay. This day and age, it's not like people are going and, killing each other. So why do I need to really protect myself? I have the police to take care of that. I have so many other, social norms in place, which kind of prevent all of that, from happening on a daily basis. Yeah, you will have some stray incidents happening, and especially in certain areas, in any country, anywhere in the world, right? You step into the wrong time, in the wrong place, obviously you're going to have it, but it's not a common thing. It's not commonplace. But so why do I need a gun in the first place? Not just have a gun, but having an assault weapon is even worse. And not just having an assault weapon, you will find that some of these people even have multiple guns. Okay, now give me a break. You're trying to protect yourself, and under that pretext, now you have this whole collection of weapons. There are people who do that. People have wine collections, people have music collections, people have car collections, people have all kinds of collections. But to talk about weapons, automatic, semi-automatic, I mean, this is crazy. So, I mean, this is another topic where, I could really go on and on. I feel very strongly about it. That's because I feel it's totally unnecessary, right? We are in Krishna's protection. We don't have to worry about these things. There are reversals in life. There are things, bad things do happen to good people. But as devotees, we understand that nothing happens without the sanction of Krishna, right? So Krishna is there to protect us. And if he so desires that we should get impacted, it will happen, right? There's nothing we can do to change that. But Krishna always protects his devotees. So if we were to, the other day, Ruchira and I were driving, and we had the right of way and the other person had a stop sign. That person just came right in front of us. We were going at probably 60 or 65, and then this person just happened to be at the crossroad. That person happened to just go through the stop sign right in front of us. More than likely, we would have completely, totaled a car, but most importantly, we could have taken another person's life. So I was petrified, when that happened. I managed to veer out of the way. And this was such a close call just a few days ago. So, these things can happen. But Krishna averted that. If Krishna wanted that to happen, it would have happened. I don't know, maybe if it was my karma or, the person who was driving that car's karma, it could have very well happened that we could have had a terrible, terrible accident, and the consequences could have been really dire. Krishna averted that. But the beauty is, not only did Krishna avert that, but we as devotees can recognize that. We can discriminate today we can discriminate. We're not going to say, that was coincidental or it was chance, right? Chance doesn't apply here anymore. Nothing happens by chance. Everything happens by Krishna's plan. Krishna sanctions it and it happens. And he is always, always, always protecting his devotees, right? So we need to understand that there is the higher power, the higher personality that is actually overseeing all of this. All these energies, the external energy especially, is under his control. We are a part of that, right? We are the marginal energy that can be on either side, and we constantly keep drifting between his internal energy and his external energy. And the external energy is constantly acting on us. As we've been reading and discussing over the last several weeks, we have absolutely no way of dealing with this external energy otherwise, unless, as Krishna says, Yoman Smariti Nityashaha Tasyaham Sulabha Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yoginam. So he says, you think about me, Ananya Cheta Satatam. Right? So just by remembering Krishna, remembering and serving Krishna and applying ourselves in a way that we're constantly in his shelter, that's all we need. We don't need to ask for anything. In fact, our prayers also should be, Krishna, please keep me in your shelter. Because when we are in his shelter, there's nothing else we need, right? Good or bad. Krishna is there to protect us. It's only when we step out of that shelter, it's like stepping out of the shade and moving, and stepping into the sun, the scorching sun on a hot summer day, right? That's when we feel the effects of the sun. But when we are in the shade, it's nice and cool. There's a light breeze. Everything is nice. That is how shelter of Krishna also works. As long as we're in the shelter of Krishna, everything is absolutely fine, right? And fine, when I say fine, it's not that everything is the graph is only going to look up. It's going to be a graph that's going to go up and down, up and down. So there are going to be some reversals, but those reversals are going to be in a way that is very clearly orchestrated by Krishna, in a way that we are safeguarded one way or the other in life and death. You find several devotees who are, going through the situation. The COVID situation is so bad world over, and more so now in India. You hear every day, you wake up in the morning to hear, friends of yours are gone, people that you knew are gone, people who were close to you are gone. It is a very, very sad, sad, sad situation. And among them are also devotees. And you wonder, why is this happening to us? But again, like I said, as long as we are in the shelter of Krishna, Krishna is protecting us not only in life, but in death as well, right? So as we get through, further in these verses as well, here Maharaj Yudhishthira is also having a lot of his kith and kin go. In fact, millions and millions and millions of people had already left their bodies in the battle of Kurukshetra, right? And now he's starting to see people who are, even the few that are left behind, even they are going away, right? Most importantly, Lord Krishna himself is going. Of course, Lord Krishna he is not touched by any of these. These are all his energies and his pastimes. He chooses to come down, in his original form, be a part of this pastime, and actually, wind up the pastime as well. So he starts it, plays in it, and then he even shuts it down expertly, right? But all of these things, you would wonder, why is this happening to people, who are also devotees of Krishna? But Krishna is taking care of them. As you will see down the road, as we get through some of the verses, there are some very interesting descriptions given in the scriptures, not just in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but even when you read more from Mahabharata as well, you will see that some of these individuals have actually made it into the spiritual planets, or even the higher planets for that matter, through the arrangement of Krishna. In fact, at one point, I'll share a snippet where, Yudhishthira Maharaj is invited, and he's making his way in, to the higher planets. And as he's going by, suddenly there is nothing but gloom, dark gloom. And there's so many voices crying out in pain, shrieking, loudly. And he was like, what's going on? I mean, am I heading towards the higher planets, or am I going to Patalok, or, going to some hellish planet? And then he sees people, in boiling water. He sees fire. He sees, all kinds of very, very dark circumstances, taking place. There he even hears voices saying, Yudhishthira Maharaj, this is Arjuna. Yudhishthira Maharaj, this is, Bhima. And he's hearing his brother's voices. He's hearing Draupadi's voice as well. And he's like, no way, this cannot be. These are devotees of Krishna. How is this possible? I mean, I was completely shocked when I came across this. But this is also, how it was more an illusion that is provided for, the little karma that Yudhishthira Maharaj had incurred. It was not because it was more a deception in terms of an illusion that was created to give him that effect, so that he could do some prayashchit. That small error was, for him to lie about Ashwatthama, right? That was the only time that he lied. Otherwise, he was, a very virtuous person, never lied in his entire life. So he actually didn't go to the hellish planet. It was just created for him so that he could experience it just momentarily, and then it was all cleared up. Well, what I'm coming to say is that, the other interesting part is that, when he was then given, entry into the heavenly planets, there in one of the heavenly planets was seated Duryodhana on a throne. And you're wondering, oh my God, how is this possible? Duryodhana, after everything that he did, how did he end up in the higher planet? But, even he is given a place because of his performance in terms of sticking to his prescribed duties and being in the association of the Lord. And, so he had a role to play. And the role that he played it truly and played it really well, to a point that we dislike him so much. When you take up a role as a villain, in a movie, for instance, you would see the villain has to also be given credit, because if the villain doesn't do a good job as a villain, then you're not going to really get the impact, right? The whole movie is a flop. In this case, Duryodhana played that role so expertly that he also performed his prescribed duties as a Kshatriya, and gave up his body on the battlefield. And, in the presence of the Lord himself, he's also given a place. Now, he's not taken to, a realm where he's in the spiritual realm where it is eternal, but he is given a place in the higher planets where he will spend, years and years and years before he is then, brought back to the earth. And then, he gets an opportunity to perfect himself. I said this was going to be a short class, but I'm a lot of this, these thoughts are coming to me, and I'm being inspired to speak, some of these things so that I can discuss. And again, just to get back on track here, it is very, very important, in terms of bringing up children. So even though Krishna had so many children, it is something that we should think about. The few children that we have, as parents, we have a heavy responsibility, and we need to ensure that we are nurturing them and giving them the right spiritual foundation. And we have to set the right example. We have to be exemplary in terms of who we are, how we approach life, and looking at it, and practicing what we do, and practicing everything that we learn from the scriptures, right, as much as we can. And again, I'm not saying we're all perfect. We're going to be sticking to the T, and do everything that is mentioned in the scripture. That is the standard. That's the gold standard. But we need to constantly try. And many times we try, we fall, we need to get up, and we need to keep moving. This is how we evolve. This is how we continue to improve upon ourselves. So I'm not saying that, the bar is high and we're all there. I'm saying that the bar is high, but we all need to work towards it. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but we shouldn't lose hope. We shouldn't get discouraged. We need to continue to pray sincerely to stay in the shelter of Krishna because he's our ultimate father. And as a father, he's not there to punish us, but to excuse our shortcomings. He knows who we are, where we are in our lives. He knows the baggage we carry, for millions of lifetimes. He knows. But as long as our efforts and attempts are sincere, He's able to give us that help, lift us up and make us walk again. We're going to walk a few steps, and like a baby, we're going to fall again. That's bound to happen because we're still babies when it comes to our spiritual journey. We're, just starting, so to speak. And therefore, we shouldn't lose hope, but continue to try and try and try. Now, talking about protection, Krishna in his Chaturvya forms is the ultimate protector of all living entities. So, Krishna is the source of all creation, right? So, even in the scriptural references that we have, Ete Chamsa Kalapumsa, that was Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam, right? So, in this sloka, the word Swayam is particularly mentioned because Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. He is the source. He is the original source. Everything emanates from him and all of the expansions. So while Srimati Radharani is his internal potency and is not different from him, Balaram is his primary expansion through his Swayam Prakash. So Balaram in turn expands into the Chaturvyuha, right? Or the four expansions as we know, right? In terms of Vasudeva, Sankarshna, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. And again, they all have roles as protectors. So for instance, Vasudeva is the ultimate protector, right? You have Sankarshna who protects the true ego, not the false ego, but the true ego that we all carry as living entities, right? And Pradyumna protects, through transcendental knowledge, right? And then we have Aniruddha, who protects the mind. So when we have a troubled mind and we're going through difficulties, to calm our minds down, to give us some stability, praying to Aniruddha is very helpful because we're praying to Krishna again, right? And Aniruddha in that form is responsible for helping us control our disturbed minds, for instance. And then, of course, there are the avatars, right? For the sake of Krishna's pastimes. Now, avatar, as I said, and as we all know, is one who descends. And Krishna descends once in the day of Brahma at his own will, in his original form, right? So there are 6 primary avatars, that categories of avatars, if you can categorize them that way. The Purusha avatar that we all know, right? So that's the Karuna Dakashaya Vishnu or Mahavishnu, from where the millions and billions of universes are emanating from the pores of his skin. And then you have the Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, where he then expands himself to enter each and every one of these universes. And then the Kshirodakashaya Vishnu, where he, is a part of every atom, and that becomes a part of every living entity that we know, right, in the universe. And not just living entities, but even unmanifested forms like, materials like rocks and wood and steel and, metal and things like that. And then you have the Leela avatars. You have the Leela avatars where, I don't need to say much, like Rama, Narsimha, Vamandev, Varaha. I mean, so there are so many Leela avatars as well that Krishna displays and expands himself. And then you have the Manavantra avatars. So the Manavantra avatars, as we know, for every Manavantra, there is a Manu. And so Swayambhuva Manu is an expansion, direct expansion that's coming again. So he comes in, he descends and performs that role as well. And then you have the Guna avatars. And in the Guna avatar form, we have, those are, again, catered to the modes that we know of, right? So the Rajas, Tamas, and so on. So in the mode of goodness, so you have Vishnu, you have Brahma and Shiva, right? For as in the mode of goodness you have Vishnu, and for man mode of passion you have Brahma, and for the mode of ignorance you have Shiva, who are administering and are the heads for these gunas. Then you have the Yuga avatars, right? So based on the era that we're in, we have Yuga avatars like Buddha and so on. And then you have specially empowered individuals that are then a part of the Shakti avatars, right? Like Vyasadeva, who is a literary incarnation of Krishna, right? Like Srila Prabhupada, who was especially empowered to help the world over, right? And he's made such a huge impact when you consider that his stature is probably 5'6" or so, but he's made such a huge impact, right? And we can't even describe in words what he's done in the short time that he did, and that's completely inconceivable. It's not humanly possible for us otherwise, right? So he's specially empowered. Parashuram is another one. So there are several other Shaktavesha avatars. So I thought I would cover these few topics. I know it's a little challenging, especially when there's not much in the purport, because it is pretty self-explanatory. So there's a reason why Srila Prabhupada, also had his purports done the way he did. But this also gives us a chance to reflect on some of these things. And I thought these were some things that resonated with me, and I felt like I should share them with you. I hope it wasn't too intense, and I didn't make you feel uncomfortable. So please forgive me if I did so. But there are realities in life that we need to face. Society as we know it is changing and will continue to morph in ways that we cannot comprehend or foresee. But things definitely are going in a way where Kali Yuga is, the effects of Kali Yuga are becoming very evident. Who knows? Owls might start shrieking during the daytime, pretty soon. It may not happen. I have an owl sitting in my chimney. Usually in the winters and the nights, I hear, the owl. But now, even in the summertime, I hear the owl, in my chimney, at the top of the chimney. It's somewhere there. It comes and rests itself. Maybe it has a nest or something like that. But I can hear it, at night. But who knows? That could change in time. The owl could start making itself known and announcing itself even during the daytime. So we need to get prepared for that as well. But the best preparation comes through our devotional practices. As long as we are in the shelter of the Lord, everything will work fine. Okay. So with that, I would like to, I know we're 5 minutes over. If there's any discussion, I would welcome that, and see if there are some questions, any concerns that you have, any feedback, any comments. Please feel free to let me know right now, and we'll spend the next few minutes before we close the call for the weekend.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhu, for touching this children thing. So when we hear about this Krishna having a family of 1.6 million, if people without the, of course, the help of Prabhupada in these books, right? We could not have even imagined, because if something which is outside beyond our perception, we think that, it's not possible to manage 2 children. Right? How is this possible to manage 1.6 children? Though we understand that he is the Supreme Lord, but when he comes in this world, so it is like difficult to conceive or feel it, Prabhu. From what we understand, the way you explained about things that are changing, I think some examples you gave, children who are not kind of maybe devotees. So maybe for them to look at your children and to see how they are, right? It's not going to be easily, or they cannot even conceive it. Being in America and having 2 girls grown up and being so devoted, it's really impossible for a person who doesn't have that kind of background. I was just trying to relate, Prabhu. And also yesterday we were having this kirtan at Mahal, Matkali Mataji Rundan Prabhu's house. So I mean, how the children, though they play and do all naughty things, but when it comes to do kirtan, I mean, the way, I mean, each one of them were singing, it was so feeling. I mean, they were having real that devotion. So we can see that when we were hearing that kirtans. So I mean, that kind of security, I mean, that is building up. I mean, of course, they got that from the previous lives, but yeah, with the association and the sangha that we are having, so it is helping them to build on top of it and move forward. So thank you, Prabhu. I mean, it's nothing is impossible from that perspective. I mean, only thing that we need that good association and continue to move in the right direction.
Absolutely, Prabhu.
Thank
We're
you.
very fortunate. We should be very grateful every single moment, really. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Excuse
Krishna,
me.
Mataji. Please
Excuse me.
accept mine too.
Then, really, I mean, that was that is be in being part of that. Having been there with through this, watching through this quarter of a century, growing up with you all, and really how the spiritual oasis has built up in Naperville, and the children who are so very responsible individuals and following Srila Prabhupada, that is the most amazing, experience of whole life itself. That's so wonderful, really. And what Srila Prabhupada came to give, to receive it, yes, that is that is the most blessed thing in life, human life. Thank you very much. I mean, you are part of that builders of this community, and I really appreciate, hearing about it from you. Thank you very much. Very hope giving in the middle of, and look at that. If you, I think last year probably, there is on the North Aurora Road, there is point blank, shoot point blank in our own Naperville. I was like, what is what is it that precipitated this thing over here in our Naperville? I was so heartbroken to see that place right there, Krishna. In the middle of it all, we have this one drop of mercy. Thank you very much for focusing on it, nurturing it, and bringing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. In fact, it's not just our children. Look at this child, in the presence of this big sister who's always been nurturing me throughout the many years, many decades. So I thank you for giving me that, being so compassionate, being so guiding, being so caring, being so loving. It's such a genuine, such an open heart. I have so much to be grateful to you for. So thank you very much for being that big sister to me. Hare Krishna, Sandhya Mataji.
Hare Krishna, that's the other way around. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for thank you for bringing so many practical aspects of this, present day situations and moments and personal experiences, Prabhuji. Because sometimes we see, when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, how do you relate and apply in our lives is actually a question. We can always hear every day, but application in our lives is most important, which I lack in my family, and sometimes I feel that. So practical situations are most important. Looking and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing the Krishna's pastimes, and hearing to the Guru and sadhus. But how we apply in our practical and daily lives, that is how it nurtures our Krishna consciousness as well. So, but you brought so many examples on how and when and what So that's really the day-to-day situations, because Srimad Bhagavatam doesn't tell take care of your children, do this, do that, right? So but Prabhupada in his purports gives an indication on what to do, how to do. So but you have set that example, as Sandhya Mataji was telling, not just for yourself but for the whole, all these years, the way you developed and the way you've done. I can see Veera coming up, and I can see the Ramana coming up. It's just jewels. In that way, I can always see that, another. But what I feel is just everything is great. Srimad Bhagavatam, yes, but the holy name is the one which attracts everyone, even in your family, right? So the way you are doing kirtan, that came to the children, and the way it attracts that means unbelievable, unconceivable, that holy name can attract each and everyone, whether you have devotion or not. It attracts and melts the hearts. That's what I see in my life, looking at our children as well. Anyway, Prabhuji, holy name is everything. I'm just, I'm still, it's very difficult for me, but I'm slowly understanding that holy name is everything. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Like I've always said, Balaram Prasad Prabhu, my hats off to you for, what you're doing as a parent, what Mahati Gopi and you have been doing, for, constantly. I see how Hemangi, I see Pradumna, I see how they're developing into such beautiful, beautiful devotees. Okay, they have their inner strength is showing through, the test of time. I see that in you, and I see that completely exemplified, in your children. At such young age, tender age, they're able to deal with and face such dire circumstances. It's totally unimaginable otherwise. I'm choking right now because when I try to put myself, as Ruchira and I, we have this discussion almost on a regular basis, how you're dealing with this, how the children are dealing with it. It's so difficult for anybody for that matter. And so my heart goes out to you all, and I see what a wonderful role that you're playing and how well you're playing as a father and as children, how they are receiving it and also, reciprocating. So, they're blessed, Prabhu. They're definitely blessed. You are all definitely in Krishna's shelter there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks. It's all the association, I think, which is, and then the prayers of the Vaishnavas. That's the strength, Prabhu. That's nothing other than that.
I agree, Prabhu. I agree. We have to hold each other's hands, and we need to help each other out. Because there's not always going to be times when we're strong. We're going to be very weak many times. And that's when we need, I was talking to Anatama Prabhu the other day, and he was telling me, I'm feeling so down. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, Anatama Prabhu, you're saying this. I mean, I should be saying this, and I go through this every moment, but how come? No, but he was being so sincere. He was being so honest, because we're all living in this material world. And he was saying, if it weren't for Srila Prabhupada and, Krishna helping me out, I would be so devastated. I'm going through such difficult times. The last few days, I've been so down. I was just thinking, see, he's sharing his heart in confidence, and I'm sharing this with you. But just to demonstrate, how real this whole thing is, when we are giving ourselves and opening our hearts to Krishna, Krishna comes personally, and he is there with us, and we may not be able to see him in his form, but we can experience it in the strength that he's giving us, to deal with these day-to-day situations. And that strength is Krishna. That strength is Balaram. That strength, Balaram Prasad, given that name. So that strength is there. We see that, and you've risen to the occasion many a time. So, that's really, really good. And we have so much to learn from that. I always think about, how, we could, like you said, from the scriptures, we are given this training, we're given these tools, so to speak. If you can liken it to something that we do at school, for instance, we start in kindergarten by learning A, B, C, D, the alphabets. And then slowly, those alphabets, we're taught how to make small words, right? and how those words can then be put together to make some small phrases. And that those phrases are then slowly expanded and they become sentences. But then how we use those sentences to actually make a difference in terms of making it more meaningful is where we have to put in our endeavor, having learned all of that, right? Similarly, when we're learning so much from our scriptures, how we put it into practice is where our personal endeavor comes in, our personal commitment comes in, our personal sincerity and the acceptance as to who we are, what our shortcomings are, and where we need to go and what the gaps are, is where we're using our spiritual intelligence. And that spiritual intelligence will come through our devotional practice. So just by simply doing our chanting sincerely, simply by being in the association and following the devotional practices that Srila Prabhupada has given us itself is enough for us to make that progress. And Krishna will give us that intelligence, that spiritual intelligence that we need to, get towards him. So thank you again, Prabhu. Thank you very much. I know I've taken a lot of time. So my apologies. We've gone over several minutes here. But if there's no other questions or comments, I'd like to close the call and help you get back to your weekend. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa siddhubhya cha patitatam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.